Breaking news as Amazon announces 14,000 managerial layoffs set to happen early next year, potentially saving the company up to $3 billion. Now, the company that employs 1.5 million people has also enacted a return to office mandate. Now, that has enraged thousands and thousands of Amazon employees, especially those of which who moved out of state and purchased a house. As a result of these things, many people are starting to call these return to office mandates the new silent layoffs. And some people are coining a new phrase called a get out of blame free card. So Mitch Wechsler and I are going to go over all of those things today, and we're going to take you guys back underneath the hood to further discuss what the real problem is, being that it is the municipalities, fraud, corruption, and greed. And then we're going to end this video out talking about the ultimate solution. A handful of people have been disregarding what we've been saying as far as eliminating property taxes in lieu of a universal sales tax, but no one, absolutely nobody, has asked, how much would that sales tax actually be? And so today, Mitch Wechsler is going to tell you guys exactly what that sales tax should be. And before I dig in, happy Monday, Mitch. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. My thoughts are still with the people in the Carolinas and Florida and certain parts of Georgia. That story from yesterday is incredibly sad. Unfortunately, it's continuing today. So we're going to switch gears, go back to our regular quantified methods, but know full well that we are focused on both stories.
Yes. And just real quick, guys, Hurricane Milton, which is in the Gulf of Mexico right now heading to Florida, is now officially a Category 5. So if you're in that area, please plan ahead. Let's jump right into the first segment. The article we're going to start out with is from Microsoft, titled Amazon Set to Axe 14,000 Manager Roles by 2025 to Cut Red Tape, Move to Help Save $3 billion. Now, recently, Amazon CEO Andy said that the company should increase the ratio of individual contributors to managers by 15% by March of 2025. And obviously, what that means is there's too many chiefs, not enough Indians, meaning why they have so many managers. Now, they also launched, and I like this, employees can report unnecessary procedures delaying the work. Now, personally, I'm just pause real quick. I think every single company should have something like that where they can actually report the inefficiency of their managers. Later on, we'll talk about whether or not there would be some type of retaliation. Now, this goes on. The restructuring measure would cut down nearly 13,834 manager jobs by early 2025, saving between $2.1 billion and $3.6 billion, according to Morgan Stanley. Manager roles account for about 7% of the Amazon workforce, a total of 105,770 managers globally. That's crazy. Now in 2025, that's going to decrease to 91,936. According to Morgan Stanley, they're saying the cost per manager ranges from $200,000 to $350,000 per year. Now, the savings will be approximately 3 to 5% of the company's estimating operating profit for next year. And don't forget, you guys, Amazon does have over 1.5 million employees in total. Mitch, I want to start by asking you whether or not you think it's a good idea for these companies, big companies, to put some type of policy in effect where employees, whether it's discreetly or not, can actually report the inefficiency of their managers. A lot of people are going to be afraid, Mitch, to do that. Do you think this is a good idea? Yes or no?
Well, the article has a very legitimate tone to it. They know that they've got a problem. So they're reaching out in reality to the employees and saying, we need help to find where the flaws are. And that's great. That truly is something that should be done in every company and should have been done a long time ago. But if somebody is afraid of retaliation, so just literally Tuesday of last week, we had somebody from the south side of Texas reach out saying, well, we have a group, we want to file suit against the Central Appraisal District, but we're afraid of retaliation. And I responded with, you shouldn't be afraid of any retaliation whatsoever, because under law, you have the right to do that. In the case of Amazon, they're asking, tell us what's wrong. Well, if you're truly that afraid of retaliation, go ahead, put it in writing, send it up the chain, get it into the C-suite. And if you're still afraid of retaliation and you're having a conversation with your manager, get it on tape, use your phone. You're totally entitled to do that. You have all the protections under the law to do so. So the idea that you should be afraid of retaliation is probably a boogeyman in your own head. Don't worry about it. There isn't anything that they can do. It would be a huge disaster if a manager decided they were going to take retaliation upon the employees. The odds of that happening, very minimal.
Yeah, and Mitch, do you think that this round of managerial layoffs will stop any potential like normal employee layoffs? And isn't the bigger issue these massive CEO bonuses? What are your thoughts there?
Two different issues. Okay. So the company and the board of directors itself, if they've got a policy that's been overpaying, they're going to have to address that policy because it really is a function of what's the revenue per employee per department. And that's what we've harped on in the past on these mass layoffs. So that's one issue. The other issue with regard to your question of do the employees have something to worry about with regard to layoffs? Yes, of course. Because if the system slows down, the sales slow down, those revenues or expenses keep rising, i.e. the real estate taxes due to the fraud, that has a backup right on to the employees. And you're seeing that exact same system, not having to do with Amazon, but having to do with restaurants. Look at all the restaurants that are closing because they can't pay the real estate taxes. Look at all those employees that are getting laid off. That's 4,000 restaurants in California. All those employees are out on the street now looking for a job.
One of the things that we're going to talk about next is how Amazon is actually doing quiet or what's called silent layoffs with their new enactment of the mandate requiring their employees to return to home. This is from inc.com. If you guys want to come back here, this is going to be linked in my description. If you guys want any information on the courses, I still get emails, people asking me where the courses are. Just hit more. Under the video, it will open and drop down the description. Everything in there is for free, you guys. Now, the title of this article is Are Return to Office Mandates Really Just Mass Layoffs in Disguise? Amazon's recent return to office mandate is not going over well. Or is it? Let's say you're a tech company CEO. Congratulations on your well-deserved promotion and massive bonus, by the way. And let's say you need to rid your books of a bunch of employees whom you overhired for the wrong reasons a couple years ago, back when money was cheap and boards were lenient. But you want to avoid the press blowback and the accusations of false promises and certainly the TikTok tears from the snowflake. I'm not going to read the rest of that. What do you do? Would you make their jobs a lot harder and blame it on having been too generous and accommodating during the pandemic? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here, a get out of blame free card, if you will. And this is already getting my blood boiling, Mitch, because everyone wants to blame someone else for their own issues. Real estate is one big blame game. I used to just say when people would argue during a transaction, it's my fault, blame me, so you shut up and we can just move on with what we need to do, which is our jobs. I've been writing about the Dell return to office mandate and the Amazon return to office mandate and the real reason why these mandates are a bad idea. I'm just going to read this last part right here, Mitch, and then we'll discuss this. This is not a binary issue. Unfortunately, if you're looking for red meat, all I've got for you is some tofu and coconut water. I don't know who's writing this, because all my experience and research tell me the answer is both yes and no. Here's the whole issue in a nutshell of reckless speculation. I love that phrase because there's a ton of reckless speculation. Before the pandemic, the tech industry was already in kind of an innovation malaise, but spending money like crazy, one things like NFTs. Then the pandemic hit, which stopped everyone in their tracks. But then something unexpectedly happened. A flood of new money entered the picture, but only the strong survive to grab hold of it, or the most fraudulent. Because remember, like I've been saying, and Mitch has been saying, in order to free up some of this inflation, fraud must be committed. And these people are falling hook, line, and sinker for it. And these companies hired way more people than they needed to and let them work whenever they wanted. Mitch, I first want to discuss whether or not you think that these are silent layoffs or not, because remember, a ton of people despite my advice, they moved out of state. A lot of those people purchased a house. In order for them to go back to work, some of these people may have to sell their house. A lot of those people are upside down, starting to realize it can cost up to 8% to sell your house. And you can't just sell your house in this market. And so, it's disrupted. A lot of people are mad. I mean, I've seen the comments on TikTok. I've seen it on social media. What's your take on this? A sneaky little trick or fair?
The problem is that this is not one size fits all. So it really becomes a function of what the jobs are. Let's leave aside the fact that some of these people shouldn't have been hired in the first place because it was purely speculative, as we've stated in prior videos. Just leave that to the side for a second. If you have an accounting department and that accounting department is working out of their house or working out of a local office and not necessarily in the main office, but the tasks are being performed, well, clearly one size doesn't fit all. It's not applicable to them. What do you need them back in the office for? On the other hand, your programmers that you want working collectively in groups to do what they need to do as far as the software is concerned, if it's a group function, yeah, you want them back in the office. The idea that they can work autonomously, even though some of the software, Microsoft's got some where people can work in groups, et cetera, but that's not the same as sitting across a desk, eyeball to eyeball with somebody and shooting ideas back and forth. And sometimes out of those situations, things come up that are worth their weight in gold that just simply can't happen when people are in different parts of the country working on the same team. So everything's got to be looked at on the task basis. And at the moment, there's still a lot of people that are working remotely. And that's why they've created what could be two tiers, one of which is truth, we need them back. The other one of which is, yeah, we really don't want them back, but this is a fast way to get rid of them.
Do you agree with the comment that it's this once in a lifetime blame-free card? Like they can kind of just brush it under the rug. Hey, it's a COVID thing, it was cheap money. Sorry, goodbye. I mean, what do you think of that blame-free card comment?
No, that's good for this week. But the reality is when sales slow down, I mean, we're seeing that now. Warehousing is being jettisoned by the millions of square feet at a crack. When sales slow down, that's the truth of the matter. The other stuff is kind of a political, yeah, we have to get rid of them, but they're really not putting their foot down at the speed that people have to be dropped in terms of their employment. That will come, but you're starting to see them ramp up now. We've been in front of this since day one, and you're seeing now today, okay, here's another 14,000 that are going to lose their jobs. This is a direct result in reality of what happened during COVID and the amount of money that got pumped into the system. It's trillions of dollars. And it created a fraud straight across the board. It created speculation straight across the board. And now we're going to have to live with the ramifications of all that fraud.
Yes. And for the viewers, because of our implicit guarantee, remember that. The Fed, the government, the states, municipalities, they just keep getting in more and more and more debt because they have the implicit guarantee of the taxpayer to pay that debt off. And so after decades and decades of this debt, the taxes to service, not even pay the debt down, just to service the debt and to maintain the system of fraud is crippling these companies. I mean, to be honest with you, it's not fair, Mitch, in my opinion, that there's layoffs to begin with. If the problem is the inflation is created by the government, and the fraud, the corruption, and greed is just keeping everything going, I mean, this is just a really bad thing. And so I want to explain to people real quick, you guys, I'm not trying to knock the school system, okay, necessarily. I have children. I want teachers to teach our kids. But the reason why we continuously are bringing up the schools is because they are by far the biggest municipalities. Let me give you guys an example. Now, here's a chart right here. And what I'm saying, guys, is because the school district is the biggest municipality, that's the area, and that's municipalities that appear to have the strongest rate of fraud. I mean, I don't know if the mob is working somewhere in these school districts, but it's highly probable, in my opinion, that they are. But just to give you guys an idea, the municipalities, okay, the schools are so big that they account for 80.3% of the revenue budget. The city government is only 8.8%. The county government, only 8.8. County roads, only 1.2. Fire and EMS, I want you guys to really think about this, 0.83%. So if you want to know where the fraud's at, just look in the school district. And if you don't believe me, can you explain this? Chicago public school staff up 20%. However, enrollment's down 10.5%. And I know what you guys are thinking. What about your school district, Travis? What about where you live? Stop talking about other people. Well, okay. Here's Houston ISD. Houston ISD proposed the largest school bond in Texas history. Yet, as you can see here, Houston ISD enrollment is on track to plummet 5% this year. That's the largest drop since the pandemic, but that's just year over year. Look at this, guys. When I scroll down this article, look at this chart. Enrollment has been going down since 2020, and yet the budgets are absolutely parabolic. Mitch, how can you explain to me, if you can, and to the viewers, how is it possible for the budgets of these school districts to go absolutely parabolic, and yet in some school districts there is much lower amount of actual enrollment? I mean, I'm wondering if there's any kids going to school at all at this point. What are your thoughts on this?
It's a deep subject, but before we get into that, I just want to go back on something that you said. It's qualified teachers that you want teaching your children, not teachers for the sake of being teachers. And that is what you are seeing in the bond fraud. This is why the system has pumped itself to the point where you're seeing 83% of the revenues going to these school districts. The school districts aren't performing, that's clear. When you've got the amount of population wanting to go to school decreasing, in the case of the Colony ISD, 40% of the students are contemplating quitting. These are problems straight across the board. And it all points to two things: bond fraud and teachers that have no business being in the school. A hiring practice where the teachers exist for the sake of the teachers, not for the benefit of the students.
Mitch, what are your thoughts on this image right here, which are the superintendent salary? I've highlighted the ones in yellow there that make more than the president of the United States.
Well, so in reality, why are these people paid a job to have a job that literally is decreasing? In other words, where is the value being brought to the system by any of these people getting these type of salaries? The truth is zero. They are committing zero value into the system. They're putting nothing into the system. They are simply takers. Over and above that, those people who sit on the boards of these school districts, at least in the state of Texas, signed an oath. The oath says to protect and defend the Constitution of the state of Texas and the Constitution of the United States of America. You're committing bond fraud when you sign off a budget that you hand over, it's a predetermined budget, to the chief appraisers and say, here's our predetermined budget, go meet it. Then you raise money, and I've read the documents, we've discussed those documents. In the case of LISD, 127-page bond document says, I know nothing, I saw nothing, I heard nothing, give me the money and good luck to you. When you're doing that, the net result is bond fraud. And that's why we have said time after time again, look at what they're hiding from you. You can't get to the truth. They're hiding the documents. Their balance sheets don't have any bond schedules attached. It's one problem after another. Well, turns out that's also a violation of Chapter 45 of the Texas Education Act. So there's lots of crimes being committed here. It's just a question of the DAs locking in and saying, that's it, we're going to prosecute. And the more success we have with these videos, eventually more people will get prosecuted and thrown in jail.
Now, I want to go into the solution, but let me tie this all together. Some people may be like, hey, this is an Amazon video. Why are you guys talking about school districts and property taxes? Well, let me quickly once again explain. All right, let's use the strike, the port strike as an example. The amount of money that they were dishing out to state taxes, okay, that expense, that liability far exceeded the actual expense for the labor. Meaning in that situation, they were paying substantially more in taxes than they were to their employees, which means if their property taxes and their taxes were less, then they would not have to fire so many people. And that domino effect would stop from happening. Okay. Now, I want to move on to how much potentially the sales tax would need to be to stop property tax. And again, before I let Mitch go here, and I'm going to pull this up, Mitch, understand why we're saying this. Okay. Let's put this in perspective. Take someone that's elderly, doesn't have a husband. She's on a fixed income, say, of $2,400 per month in Social Security. What if the property tax skyrockets like it has in Texas and she could no longer afford that house? Well, the state will kick her out and take her property. And that's not fair because that's hers. That's her house. So it's not fair for someone to take that away. We need to be able to lean on some type of asset that won't be taken away from us. We need to be able to retire without fear of the government or something else happening. And we have our entire lives ripped out from underneath us. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Mitch, you ready to go over the document?
Absolutely.
All right. All right, sir, I have it up on the screen. I will go ahead and have this up here. And if you can, go ahead and explain to the viewers what we're looking at.
Okay, so as we said in the past videos, every one of these videos that we've done, for whatever reason, is building upon itself. Things come up after we do a video that we're able to tie back to, and this is the next extension of what we've been working on. So it says at the very top, how much would uniform states' sales tax have to increase to offset the real estate tax being eliminated? So the average value of a home is $382,000. And in this particular case, we're referring to Denton Appraisal District. However, just understand that the formulas here are applicable on any taxing jurisdiction. So we're just going to stick to what we know in this area, but you can extrapolate very easily. So the average home value of $382,000. The average real estate tax, let's assume that it's just 2%, which is fairly close. The average real estate tax dollars per house is $7,640. The state of Texas currently at its sales tax of 6.25%. The local sales tax on top of that 6.25% is 2%, for a total of 8.25%. Texas would need approximately $81.5 billion per year to end property taxes. So there's your $81.5 billion. That's nonsense, but this is their number. So let's just use their number and you'll see where I'm going with this in a second. The housing units in Texas, not including commercial properties, are 11.5 million. That's how many houses there are. The current state of Texas sales tax collected in 23 is $82.145 billion. Okay. That looks a little bit wonky, but there's a revised chart that Travis has, and we'll just substitute these out for you, so it's not a problem. Average tax divided by the number of homes equals the average real estate tax collected, which is $88 billion. What you're going to see is that the overage collected by eliminating all the fat in the middle by switching to a uniform state sales tax is $7 billion. It's not costing more money. Get rid of the fat, and it drops $7 billion. It's the exact opposite of what the financial report at the Senate level came up with. It's the exact opposite. You save money, and that's the fat in the middle. So Travis, if you can drop down just a little bit to the 2020, okay, good. So the 2021 property tax revenue for the state of Texas was $73 billion. The 2023 total sales tax revenue for the state of Texas is $82 billion. Revenues generated from the sales tax at 8.25% are used in 2023. That's how much that's just short of $1 trillion. Okay. Your total state sales tax plus property tax revenue requirement, $155 billion. Take those numbers and all of a sudden you realize increase in sales tax to eliminate the property tax is a total of 15.64%. There's your number. The benefits of eliminating the property tax means that the sales tax goes to 15.64%, and you save $7 billion in the process.
Right. And I just wanted to clarify for the viewers that because I was actually surprised by this, Mitch. I thought it would be higher. That means that and this is for Texas, the sales tax would go from 8.25 to 15.6. And the reason for this $7 billion in savings is because we don't need those agencies that are ripping us off anymore. Is that correct, Mitch?
Yes, exactly.
Take it away, man.
You start to shrink the fraud. So what I did is I continued that theory of, okay, let's shrink the fraud. Well, when you go down the list of the benefits, the first half of that list is clear fraud. This is what we've been hammering on since day one when we started these videos. Property taxes eliminated, get rid of the fraud. Fraud and overvaluation eliminated, get rid of the fraud. And you can go down the list. Central appraisal districts eliminated, get rid of the fraud. Board of directors at the central appraisal districts eliminated, get rid of the fraud. Violations of state property tax code, state constitution eliminated, get rid of the fraud. Property tax consultants, the portion of their business having to do with saying, we're going to charge you 30% of the savings, eliminated. Why? Because that portion of that is a fraud that's induced upon those tax consultants as being part of the system where they're in fact taking money on the backs of the real estate taxpayers. School district bond fraud, eliminated.
You know what I like here is no state would own the land beneath your asset.
Yep.
I mean,
and that means that you end up in 30 years from now, based on your own amortization schedule, you own that asset. That asset in 30 years from now will have a value and it's yours.
Yeah. And Mitch, are we going to upload this to the links? Can we share this with the viewers?
Yes, we can. There's one that you didn't have, but I've already sent it to you. So yeah, well, the correct one with the exact 000 will be there. No problem.
I apologize. I thought that was, in other words, guys, look over that. It's actually a 3-page document. I mean, Mitch is making this specifically for you. So again, all you got to do is you hit that drop down on the video and it's going to be in the link that says data link. So you can access that folder. It's a Gmail drive that I've made and you can access and start passing it out. I really appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much for following along. I really hope you guys are going to continue to learn. Remember, step 1, sign the petition. Step 2, take the course so you can start making a difference. Mitch, before we let him go, anything you want to end on?
The Texas Finance Committee, Senate Finance Committee, created a report. I do not know who paid for that report. I don't know why that report was ordered. I do know that that report was used for purposes of creating fear among the public. Well, the taxes on the sales would have to go to 26%. You either lied or you are complicit or you are a co-conspirator in a criminal conspiracy to defraud. Either way, you're trying to use the public and dissuade them from the truth. You're either a liar and or you are a criminal. Your own documents, and at the bottom of that 3 pages are a link to the research. And that link is government documents. Make up your mind. You're either going to adhere to the law or at some point, some DA is going to come knocking on your door and you deserve it.
Luckily for our community, Mitch, we have you to help us with the math. And I thank you for that, sir. You guys give Mitch another round of applause. Comment below. His information is going to be in the description. Mitch, much love to you, man. Thank you for all the help. And you guys have a great Monday. Again, if you're in Florida, look out for Hurricane Milton. That is on the way. Again, it's a Category 5. Stay safe. Talk to your community. And other than that, if you guys are out there just living your life, we wish you luck and we hope you win.